Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Show again. So let's get started. Alright, so first on the weekly chart, what you see over the S&P 500 is that it actually made a higher high once again. This is a recent high, all-time high, unless it's not the all-time high because this is still the all-time high, but basically it made a recent even higher high compared to here. So even though people say that this is potentially going to retrace back all the way below, but it ain't going to happen, at least in the near term. So right now it still looks really bullish, although there could be short-term retracement and then continuation. So this target over here to this 3004 to 3003 is definitely a region where you could consider taking the remainder of your profit or your first level of profit and let the remaining of the position continue to trail behind it. Yep, so weekly wise, you can see this is a high, this is a higher high, this is a low, this is a lower low. So tentatively on the weekly chart wise, you're still getting a neutral market structure, but definitely bullish and looking strong because you get this 50, 150 and 200 align very nicely. So right now the trend isn't exactly expanding. It's actually contracted, but right now it looks like it's back to expanding again, especially with this 20 exponential moving average crossing above, showing short-term strength as well. Sorry. All right, so let's move on to the daily chart. What you see over on the daily. On the daily wise, what you see here is a high, a low, a high, a higher high, a low, and a higher low. So market structure has converted back to bullish market structure and bullish trend, and it remains strong with, actually it's normal because you got 50, 200, and 150. 150 could very much be sloping upwards and going up above if the trend continues in the near term. All right, so I would say that if is it time to add on in terms of your long-term position? No. These two would have been good position to add on if you're looking for investment-wise, because this 3000 is likely going to be a good psychological barrier, as it was also the simple 200 simple moving average, which is a very common moving average used by most traders as well. Okay, so moving on, let's move to the Nasdaq. Okay, so for the Nasdaq wise, yeah, possibly on the less bullish side, maybe because he has been really bullish previously. So what you see now over here is some sort of like a descending triangle on the daily. But before I touch about that, let's go back and look at a bigger picture, which is the weekly chart, which still looks really strong. You get high, a much higher high, a low, and a higher low. So like I mentioned, if you have entered based on this trade, you'll be sticking to it. But otherwise, you get a bullish market structure, bullish trend, and really strong with 50, 150, and 200 expanding. You can see the gap between 50 and 150 increasing as well. Okay, so on the look on the daily chart, what you will see is slightly a little bit less bullish because you get a high, a lower high, a low, and a higher low. So what I get over here is a consolidation pattern, some sort of like a triangle, but because it leans towards the downside or the support side of it, that would be tentatively a little bit more bearish bias. But that said, taking into consideration of the whole price action itself, it does still leans towards the upside momentum until a clean break below. So this is when, even though if you look in this in isolation, it looks like a descending triangle or more bearish in a sense. But if you understand and look at the big picture, you realize that it is actually very much in the bullish momentum is still intact. So for this kind of scenario, generally I wouldn't advise going against the short, simply because if you do go for the short, there's very much likelihood that even if it does break, you could find support at this 20 exponential moving average. So there's very little reward that you could look forward to. Instead, when you're looking for this kind of strong trend, what you're looking to enter is look for things like, for example, this pullback, and then a break of this pullback structure, you draw this line and this line. A break of it is where you could enter earlier long position per se. So that's how you will want to trade or how you will want to invest as well. So did I update that? So yeah, market structure remains strong. This is actually neutral and price remains bullish. All right, and next up we have ASHR. So for ASHR, what you get here is a high, a higher high, so you get 34.94 and 34.97, but then you get the low and the lower low. So right now it's actually consolidating in a neutral market structure. Oh, before that, let's go back to the weekly once again. I keep forgetting on that. So the weekly market structure, similarly as that, you still get a very strong bullish market structure on the weekly chart. You get a high, a higher high, a low, and a higher low. Because this is yet to confirm. Of course, it's very unlikely that it could go all the way here to form a lower low immediately. Even if it was to retrace, it's more likely to be in a zigzagged form kind of pattern. But let's see how it goes. So over here, I would definitely advise entering and catching the falling knife yet until you reach potentially here, whereby there's some sort of support at $30 region. So definitely get a bullish market structure, bullish trend, and the strength of the trend is 50 to 150 to 100. So it's strong. So let's go to the daily chart. Okay, so for the daily chart, you get the high, a high, a low, and the lower low. So it's actually a neutral market structure. What you want to see is basically a rebound here, and then you close with a lower low. So that's where you get a high and a lower high. So bearish market structure will be confirmed. As of right now, it's still looking bullish with 50, 150, and 200 aligned nicely. And then let's move on to KWEB. So overall in KWEB, you actually have a bearish market structure. You get a high, a low, a low, and a lower low. So could it temporarily be finding some sort of support? If you look at the price action wise, yes, it could. So for aggressive trader, what you do is actually enter a long upon the break above this side, which means you will have entered a long. So that's on the trading perspective. For the investment perspective, generally, I will only enter a position for 20 exponential moving average only if I have yet to enter any position in this particular asset. So for example, if you are still new in investment and you're looking to invest in China stocks, then entering it here would be a first possible start whereby you nibble or get in your first small position, say maybe 10 or 20% of your entire position. And then if it does retraces over to the 50 simple moving average, you can look to add more as well. Okay, but otherwise, similarly, let's start from the weekly chart. Okay, weekly chart, similarly, you get a very strong rejection kind of price action, especially this bearish engulfing candlestick. But like what I mentioned, a lot of time is you must still look at the overall trend. When you get a bearish engulfing, or even I see you get a red man, a red hanging man, or inverted hammer, it still continue to go upwards. So just don't look at a single candlestick because you must understand the overall market structure as well. So overall market structure remains bullish, and until there's clearer reduction in terms of momentum and strength, would I lean towards the bearish side. So right now, if there's some sort of retracement towards this nearly up to the $60 region is where I'll look to enter my long-term investment as well. So yeah, but understand at least on the weekly chart, which is why I'm okay to enter the 20 exponential moving average on the weekly, but it's 50 simple moving average on the daily. All right, so market structure clearly remains bullish, and strong. No, it's actually normal. You get 150, 250. All right, so let's move to Bitcoin. If I move to Bitcoin, let's go back to KWEB. We haven't updated the daily yet. Okay, so let's take a look at the daily. So on the daily chart, like I mentioned, you get a bearish market structure. Trend remains bullish. And this remains strong. 50, 150, and 200. All right, and finally, let's look over at Bitcoin. So for Bitcoin wise, we'll only look at the daily because the weekly is yet to close yet. So what you get here is a high, a lower high, a low, and a lower low. So technically right now it's in a bearish market structure, which was already exhibited yesterday. So trend remains bullish and strength of the trend is normal now. Because you get this 150 close. So the minute 50 is in between this where the strength of the trend is really weak because there isn't a clearly defined strength of the trend that these three lines are actually intermixed per se. All right, so looking closer a bit at the 4-hour chart, you will see that if as per my previous setup where I enter over here, I'm still currently in a short position simply because still being rejected of this 20 exponential moving average on the 4-hour chart. So I don't see any region even though there's a bullish market structure. So this is the key thing you must understand. The overall big picture is that it's still bearish. So I will only look to close if there is double confluence, say for example, bullish market structure plus a close above the 20 exponential moving average. So as long as these both the criteria does not fulfill, I would not look to close because overall it's still looking a little bit towards the bearish biasness below this 200 simple moving average on the 4-hour chart. So on the 4-hour chart, you get a bullish market structure, a bearish trend, and a strong, or is it a weak trend? So currently right now, you can't look at this. You look at the hour before. So this you'll get 9291. Yep, it's actually in a strong trend, even though it could possibly retrace and then become a weak one instead, or normal one instead. So yep, let's see how things goes. But otherwise, false breakout and enter remains valid, short remains valid, the first target, and these two both remains a valid condition. All right, so that's basically the update for today. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow for a quick update on Bitcoin if there's any major changes. Otherwise, take care everyone and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.